Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Let's call to order this hearing of the Assessment Appeals Board for June 3rd, 2019. Hard to believe it's already June. Okay, we'll start with a roll call.
Board Member Crow.
Present.
Board Member Curtis.
Present.
Board Member Stern.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So we'll ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you intend to provide testimony today, please remain standing after. And our clerk, Mr. Vlahakis, will swear you in. Okay, ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. I'll now place you under oath. When I complete stating your oath, please state I do. You and each of you do solemnly affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the matters now pending before this board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You may now be seated.
Great, thank you. We'll go next through the agenda review, and this will be, we'll take action on a number of items on the agenda, all with one motion. And so, Mr. Vlahakis, go ahead whenever you're ready.
And I just realized I forgot to print that out. I'm going to have to read it from my screen. I apologize.
It's okay.
Okay, it's a short one. So, agenda review, starting with item number 42. Application number 17-11451, applicant Buchanal LLC, Sean Muradian, removed from the agenda due to submission of a withdrawal. Item number 45, application number 18-10925, applicant Clarence Riddle, continued to July 15th, 2019, pending receipt of original stipulation. Item number 46, application number 18-10967, applicant American Commercial Equities 3 LLC, removed from the agenda due to submission of a withdrawal. Item number 47, application number 18-10970, applicant Moeller Investment Group LLC, removed from the agenda due to submission of a withdrawal. Item number 48, application number 18-11262, applicant BMW of North America Incorporated, continued to July 15th, 2019, pending receipt of original stipulation. Item 51, application number 18-11302, applicant Chick-fil-A, removed from the agenda due to submission of a withdrawal. That completes the agenda review. Recommend approval as read.
Okay, are there any questions, comments from the board? Okay, we'll look for a motion to approve the agenda review.
So moved. I'll second that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Curtis, seconded by Mr. Crow, and motion carries. Okay, next we have a moment for public comment. If anyone has a public comment on an item not on today's agenda, this would be the time to come forward and talk about it. Okay, no one's rushing forward, so we'll go next to board comments. Anything not on the agenda? Nope. Okay. Next, we will, I'm sorry, Mr. Curtis, did you have something? Okay, next we'll go through all the remaining items on the agenda. We'll determine their status to see which might be moving forward with a hearing today or not, and then we'll come back and hear at the end anything that'll be moving forward today. So we'll start with number 8. No, yep, yes. Number 8, application 17-10905. Applicant is Air 7 LLC. I'm looking all the way down to see the reason, but I'm sure Mr. Vlahakis will tell us.
Yeah, the applicant is sitting up here already because we're expecting them to be the first hearing, like in prep. So we're expecting this to be a hearing today, and they'll be first. So Ms. Bolidian can update you on their position today.
Okay, so we'll go to the applicant first. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Vicki Baladian, representative of Air 7 LLC.
Okay, and Ms. Baladian, sounds like you're ready to move forward today with the meeting?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. And any comments from the assessor?
Good morning, board members, county council. Christopher Horn for the assessor's office.
Morning.
The assessor's office is also ready to move forward. We estimate about 30 minutes for our presentation.
Okay. Sounds good. And it sounds like this might be our only hearing moving forward, but just for the sake of information, Ms. Baladian, any estimate on time for your presentation? It doesn't have to be accurate.
I'm thinking the whole thing will take about 2 to 3 hours.
Okay, great.
And Mr. Chair, just to let you know, findings of fact have been requested and paid for by the applicant.
Great, thank you. And we have our county counsel, Ms. Porsche, here. Glad to see her. So we'll come back to your item after we go through the other items on the agenda to determine the order that we'll move forward. Next, items 9 through 15. Applications 17-10964 through 10970. Applicant is BAX ALTA US Inc.
And Mr. Chair, my associate here is handing out a little handout. This item is going to be a little all over the place. So first, I want to say we also want to cover item 16, application number 17-10971 for Baxalta US Incorporated. Item 17 through 24, application number 18-11068 through 18-11075 for Baxalta US Incorporated. And item 25, application number 18-11469 for Baxalta US Incorporated. Stipulations have been circulated by email to you on Friday and then in hard copy this morning for review. Half of the applications have been withdrawn. Half are requesting approval of a stipulation agreement. So I'm going to go ahead and read the ones that are withdrawn, and then you can approve the stipulations on the remainder. So first on the withdrawals, item number 10, application number 17-10965, applicant name Baxalta US Incorporated. Item number 11, application number 17-10966. Item number 14, application number 17-10969.
I'm sorry, Mr. Vlahakis, these are the items that are withdrawn? or-
Withdrawn, yes.
Thanks, go ahead.
So that item 14, 17-10969. 18, application number 18-11069. Application, item 19, application number 18-11070. Item number 22, application number 18-11073. And item number 25, application number 18-11469. It's requested that you remove those listed items from the agenda due to submission of a withdrawal. Can I get a motion to that effect?
Sure. Any questions first from the board? And you do need a motion for a withdrawal? Normally we don't.
We can, without motion, the board removes them from the agenda. We can do that.
Okay.
And so that would leave us with the balance, which are stipulations. If you would like to, if you've had a chance to review, if you'd like to review the large reduction stipulations.
Okay, and are these included in what we received via email last week, or are we just?
They were emailed Friday afternoon, and then they should have been passed around to you this morning.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
What type of property is this?
Mr. Crow, this property is the former Baxter property. It's the pharmaceutical company. And these stipulations, these appeals address not only real property, but also the business property.
So in essence, property has been vacated or?
No. The business property stipulations really address, and I think we put comments in the large step memo. There was some double reporting on the part of the applicant along with construction in progress. The real property is just the simple decline in value for the land and the improvements.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments from the board? So we'll look for a motion to approve the remaining items, the stipulations.
So moved. I'll second that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Curtis and seconded by Mr. Crow. And the motion carries. And so, Mr. Vlahakis, all of the different Baxalta applications on our agenda are,
Yes, items 9
Resolved.
through 25 are now resolved.
okay.
I just need one more vote on that.
Oh, it's me.
Thank you.
Great. I think we'll go next to items 26 through 31. Applications 17-11062 through 67. Applicant is F. Oliveira Ranch Company.
Mr. Chair, I also recommend we hear items 32 through 37 for a subsequent year from the same applicant, application numbers 18-11266 through 18-11271. It's going to be the same action on both sets.
Okay, so then considering items 26 through 37. Good morning.
Good morning. John Origer, agent for the applicant.
Good morning. Are you prepared to move forward today? or-
My understanding is the assessor was going to request a continuance.
Okay. So from the assessor's office.
That is correct. The assessor has reached out to the lending company for this transfer, and we've requested an appraisal. We sent that out, the request out 2 weeks ago. Instead of, and we haven't received a response, instead of showing up today and possibly requesting a subpoena, we would like to give Bank of America a little bit more time. And if we need to go down this, the road of a subpoena, then we can do it at the next hearing. But yes, we would like a continuance.
Okay. Before we talk about dates, are there any questions, comments from the board? Okay. Mr. Vlahakis, do you have any recommended dates?
Yes.
And I assume that a continuance is
Yes.
agreeable to the applicant. Okay.
Because this is a 2017 application and it's already been rescheduled 4 times, we're going to recommend a short timetable on this. Our recommended dates are either October 7th, 2019 or October 28th, 2019.
Okay. Are either of those dates acceptable to the applicant?
Yes, either of them are fine.
I'll defer to the applicant on which date they want. Either works for the assessor.
Okay. So October 7th or 28th?
Let's make it October 28th, just to give it any more time that we might need.
Okay.
All right.
And any other information from either party?
No, I believe all the information, with the exception of this appraisal, has been provided. And that's the reason the assessor is requesting a continuance today.
Okay.
This is a shopping center, isn't it?
That is correct.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, then we'll look for a motion to continue to October 28th.
So moved. I will second that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Curtis and seconded by Mr. Crow. And we'll see you then.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And next we have items 38 through 41. Applications 17-11416 through 419. Applicant LBA Realty Fund 3.
Yes, large reduction stipulation agreements have been submitted to your board for the years 2014 through 2017 for one property. These were emailed to your board last Friday afternoon and have been distributed to you this morning for further review. If you've had a chance to review, the recommended action is to approve.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Oh, I do have a copy of it here. If anyone wants to review it again. Mr. Crow?
What type of property was this? Another shopping center?
It's a large commercial building in Westlake.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Doesn't sound like it. Okay, we'll look for a motion to approve the stipulation.
So moved.
I will second that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Curtis, seconded by Mr. Crow, and the motion carries. I believe we have item 43 next. Correct. Application 18-10127. Applicant is Victor Kreider.
This stipulation was passed around to your board this morning. It was not previously provided to your board for review. That was the one in the red folder. I recommend action is to approve if you've had a chance to review.
So if you saw it. Okay, any questions or comments? Okay, we'll look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
I will second that motion.
Moved by Mr. Curtis, seconded by Mr. Crow. Motion carries. And next is item 44. Application 1810382. Applicant is Conejo Valley Mold, Inc.
No one has checked in for this item this morning. When I spoke to the applicant last week, he was unsure if he was going to move forward or not, and I haven't spoke to him since last Tuesday. Recommended action is to deny due to lack of appearance.
Okay, so assuming that we don't have anyone here in the audience representing Conejo Valley Mold, Inc. Okay, any questions from the board? Comments? Any comments from the assessor?
No comments from the assessor.
Okay, so I believe we'll look for a motion to deny due to lack of appearance.
So moved.
I will second that motion.
Moved by Mr. Curtis, seconded by Mr. Crow. Motion carries. Dun, 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 dun. 49 and 50, Mr.
That's
Marcus?
correct.
Okay, next applications 49 and 50, application numbers, or items 49 and 50, application numbers 18, 11295, and 96. Applicant is Santa Susana GRF 2.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Dylan Hoyes, agent for the applicant. My understanding this morning is that we're going to be continuing this. I'm requesting continuance on this. We were able to get the balance of the requested information to the assessor's office only about 10 to 12 days ago. I believe at this time we've fulfilled their request. If there is anything further that they would need, we would certainly be providing that. And I've been in contact with Melinda and Ms. Rovtar. I believe Ms. Rovtar is out of the office, but so at this time we're requesting a continuance.
Okay, great, thank you. Any comments from the assessor?
The assessor is in agreement, continuance is warranted. The applicant or the agent did provide data, like you said, about 10, 12 days ago. I believe one of the items that may have been discussed with Melinda DePoyen this morning may have been your opinion of value.
Correct.
We have the rough data, but we would like a little bit more from the agent, exactly from where he's approaching this. So that's the type of information that we'd like. I believe a proviso of 30 days is in order. And did Melinda give you a 441D letter?
Yes, they did.
Okay. So a continuance with a proviso, please.
And thanks, Mr. Horn. Are you saying that you're asking for information from the applicant within 30 days of today or 30 days?
Of today. Because if that's the case, then we might be able, since we go into a dark period, we might be able to resolve this before October.
Okay. And to the applicant, is the information that's requested, can it be provided within the next 30 days?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, great. And Mr. Vlahakis, are we still
Yes.
looking at the October dates?
October 7th or October 28th are the recommended dates available.
Okay. Either date sound better to the applicant?
Yes, October 7th is fine.
Great. Is that okay with the assessor?
October 7th is fine.
Okay. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, we'll look for a motion to continue to October 7th with the condition that the applicant supply requested information from by the assessor within 30 days today.
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Curtis, seconded by Mr. Crow, and the motion carries. So we'll see you back on October 7th.
See you then. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Maybe for item 52, it'll be real quick. I need to copy myself.
Showtime.
Okay, so next up, item 52, application 1811245. Applicant is Ryan Neely. And it looks like we have a request to,
I'll go ahead and explain. So the clerk of the board messed up on this one, and we're asking you to vacate your denial. I've given you a copy of the application. I'll just flip through it real quickly. If you see on the first page, a red arrow there, there's a mailing address which looks like it could be 1372 or 1392, or 3972 or 3902. When our data entry staff initially input this application, they put it in as 3972. This came in the last day of the filing period, so it's when they were processing lots of applications. But if you see on the next page, so we sent their notice of hearing to 3972 Quailwood Street, and then we sent their notice of denial when they didn't show up to the hearing to 3972. That was subsequently returned by the U.S. Postal Service as undeliverable as an incorrect address. And then when I researched it, I found out we read the address wrong. It's actually 3902 Quailwood. The property tax rules specifically call out that the clerk of the board has to mail the notice of hearing to the proper address in order for you to be able to deny an application. So we've corrected our records, set this hearing out for valuation hearing in October. And today I'm just asking your board to vacate the denial due to lack of appearance of April 15th, 2019 due to our errors.
okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, we'll look for a motion.
So moved.
I will second that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Curtis and seconded by Mr. Crow.
Thank you.
I think that's a first.
The motion carries. Is that the wrong address?
Right.
Right? Right, the clerk's office is usually right on it. Okay. So we had the remaining items on the agenda are hearing officer decisions. Mr. Vlahakis, would you rather us do that after this hearing or?
It's up to you. I think we can get it over real quick and just have the one item to worry about, but it's up to you.
Okay, so then item 53 includes items 54 through 67, and these are hearing officer decisions which the board is being asked to, is it approve or to
Receive
accept?
and file.
Receive and file.
And I will apologize. I know we told your board we'd be removing this task. We haven't got approval from the Board of Supervisors yet, so we're still having you receive and file these. But hopefully in the near future, this task will be done away with. So just looking for a motion to receive and file.
Okay,
So motion is to receive and file item number 50.
53.
53.
53, sorry.
Yes. Do we have a second?
Okay, moved by Mr. Curtis. Sorry, I didn't ask if anyone had any comments or,
No,
I was the hearing officer, so you would have to.
oh, so Mr. Crow was the hearing officer and will abstain, so I'll second the motion. And so motion carries with 2 in favor and 1 abstaining.
All right, thank you. That takes us to the final item.
Okay, last item are stipulations. I believe we received all of those ahead of time,
That's correct.
correct? So those are items 69 through 84. Item 68 on the agenda. Any questions from the board?
I have none.
nope.
Okay, so we'll look for a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Curtis and seconded by Mr. Crow. Motion carries. Okay, that takes us back to our one remaining item on the agenda, which is item 8, application 17-10905. It's Air 7 LLC.
I recommend we take a brief 5-minute break, and during that time, I'll get the applicant's exhibits handed out and the
Okay.
copies of the application so that we're all ready to go.
Okay, so we'll be in recess for 5 minutes. Okay, we're back in session, and We are hearing application, or item 8 on the agenda, application 17-10905. Applicant is Air 7 LLC. And what I'd like to do first is just get a brief overview of the application from the assessor, then we'll determine burden of proof and how to move forward.
Thank you, Chair Stern. This is an appeal for, well, today it's just the situs issue of an aircraft. And the evaluation portion will be pushed off to a later date depending on the outcome. The burden of proof rests with the applicant, as this is an airplane, personal property, and they'll present first.
Great, okay, thank you. So we'll start with the applicant's presentation, and then we'll go through questions from the assessor and the board, do the process in reverse, and then with closing summaries, we'll start with the assessor and close with the applicant, just so everyone knows. And we'll make sure that we get all the information out and hear everything that everyone has to say. So whenever you're ready, Ms. Baladian, go ahead.
Good morning. We are here today on behalf of the applicant, Air 7 LLC, and the 2017 property tax appeal we will be discussing today involves the 2008 Gulfstream G550 aircraft, tail number N575PK. The dispute with the Ventura County assessor arises from the assessor's belief that the applicant is responsible for paying the 2017 property tax bill, despite the fact that the applicant permanently removed the aircraft from not only the county, but the state of California prior to the lien date of January 1, 2017. And that was the lien date for the 2017 fiscal year. This is the reason we are here before the board today. If you could please look at your exhibit binder. In Exhibit 1, you will see a copy of the 2017 Ventura County property tax bill for the N575PK aircraft, assessing the aircraft with a value of $22,722,040. The total tax due for the 2017 year was $240,671.84. In Exhibit 2, you will see a copy of the 2017 property tax appeal that was filed with the Ventura County Assessment Appeals Board on September 14, 2017. If you could please turn to page 2-2, you will see that box E1, F, and I were checked. In box I, it states, aircraft was permanently based outside of California prior to January 1, 2017 lien date. In Exhibit 3, you will find the aircraft's flight logs from November 20, 2015 through July 31, 2017. If you turn to page 3-32, 3-32. These flight logs show that the aircraft left Camarillo, California, which is KCMA, and arrived in Hillsboro, Oregon, which is KHIO, on December 28, 2016, never to return to California. The aircraft was permanently based in Oregon from December 28, 2016 through January 25, 2017. On January 25, 2017, the aircraft flew to Las Vegas, Nevada for extended maintenance work. Once maintenance in Nevada was completed, the aircraft flew to Cahokia, Illinois on May 7, 2017 for a pre-purchase inspection and additional maintenance work in preparation to be sold to a new buyer. Please turn to Exhibit 4. This includes the work order invoices for the aircraft. Page 4-1, on the top, it says date in and completed. You'll see that the aircraft entered the Jet Aviation facility on May 7, 2017, and the work was completed on July 31, 2017. Please turn to Exhibit 5. This is a copy of the aircraft purchase agreement for the N575PK aircraft dated April 28, 2017, between Airtime LLC and Air 7 LLC. On page 5-1, you will see that the purchaser, Airtime LLC, is a Delaware LLC. And if you turn to page 5-9, at the bottom, you will see that the purchaser of the aircraft, Airtime LLC, is based out of New York. Once the pre-purchase inspection was completed, the aircraft flew to Windsor Locks, Connecticut, the Bradley Airport, to be delivered to the new buyer. Please turn to Exhibit 6, which is a copy of the aircraft delivery receipt showing that the aircraft was delivered to the new buyer, Airtime LLC, on July 31, 2017, in Windsor Locks, Connecticut. Please turn to Exhibit 7, which is the FAA bill of sale for the aircraft, and it once again shows that the aircraft was sold on July 31, 2017 to Airtime LLC. Please turn to Exhibit 8. This is a copy of the hangar space lease and aviation services agreement with Global Aviation, Inc. in Hillsboro, Oregon, and it's dated December 22, 2016. On page 8-2, Section 1.1, entitled Term, it states, "This agreement will commence on the 26th day of December 2016 and will continue in effect until and including the 31st day of December 2017, unless earlier terminated in accordance with the terms set forth herein. And thereafter, this agreement will automatically be renewed for additional periods of 1 year each on the same terms and conditions as are contained in the present agreement, except as otherwise mutually agreed to by the parties, unless terminated in accordance with the terms set forth herein." And if we continue reading this page, Section 2.1, entitled Hangar Space, states, "Global hereby leases to customers square footage necessary to house the aircraft in a hangar at Global's facility." Please turn to Exhibit 9. This is an affidavit from Flo Newton, the president of Global Aviation in Hillsboro, Oregon, attesting to the aircraft's relocation to their facilities at the Portland-Hillsboro Airport on December 28, 2016. It states, "I, Flo Newton, declare and state as follows. I am the founder and president of Global Aviation, a full-service private aviation company based at the Portland-Hillsboro Airport, which provides charter, maintenance, and fixed-base operator services to aircraft owners. On December 22, 2016, Global entered into a hangar space lease and aviation services agreement with Air 7 LLC to house Gulfstream G550 aircraft, serial number 5203, bearing the FAA registration N575PK aircraft at our facilities at the Portland-Hillsboro Airport. The term of the agreement was from December 26, 2016 through December 31, 2017, and was to be renewed automatically every year unless otherwise terminated. At the time Global entered into the agreement, representatives of Air 7 informed Global that the aircraft was going to be based at the Portland-Hillsboro Airport until a buyer was found. I am informed and believe that Air 7 LLC maintained its logbooks, maintenance records, and other paperwork pertaining to the aircraft in Oregon after December 28, 2016. Air 7 terminated the agreement on or around January 21, 2017, when the aircraft was flown to Gulfstream's facilities in Nevada for maintenance. To the best of my knowledge and belief, the foregoing declarations are true and accurate, and I make this declaration under penalty of perjury under the laws of the state of Oregon on this 4th day of February 2019. We've also passed out loose exhibits. I believe it's Exhibit 31, which shows that there was a listing agreement Air 7 entered into with Privé Jet Sales on December 9, 2016, and some advertisements were published listing the aircraft for sale. Now we would like to introduce the owner of the aircraft, Mr. Peter Corral, to testify before the board today.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, can I ask a clarifying question?
Sure.
There is a document held with clips that's entitled Listing Commission Agreement. Is that at the back of the binder, not three-hole punched? Or it is three-hole punched, but it's not in the binder? Is that Exhibit 31?
That is Exhibit 31, yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good morning. I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Gregory Broge of Agelotte, Pauley, Abe, and Matarisi, attorney and co-counsel with Vicky Beladian. As Peter gets settled, if everyone's ready, we can start some direct on Peter.
Okay, could you let us, I'm sorry, could you let us know your last name one more time?
Sure. Broge, B as in boy, R-O-E-G-E.
Got it.
And sorry, also, can I get Peter's last name spelled for the record? I couldn't quite get that.
Sure, that was going to be question one under the direct.
There we go.
Say your name and spell your last name for the record.
Peter James Corral, K-O-R-A-L.
Thank you.
Good. Are we okay to proceed?
Yep.
All righty. Mr. Corral, what is your relationship with the applicant Air 7 LLC?
I own the company.
Is Air 7 LLC a California LLC, a Delaware LLC, a different jurisdiction?
It's a Delaware LLC.
Okay. And up until December 2016, where was the aircraft based out of?
It moved between Texas and California.
And what happened in December 2016 in relationship to where the aircraft was based out of?
Our advertising manager and sales office happens to be a guy by the name of Scott Fowler, and he lives in Oregon. And it just made sense to leave the airplane there so he doesn't have to come back and forth. So that's why we moved it there.
So you moved it to be closer to the person who sells the aircraft?
Correct.
Okay. And you may have heard Ms. Beladian mention it. You entered into a hangar agreement in Oregon. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Can you explain to the board what a hangar agreement is?
It's an apartment for airplanes, basically. You rent space, depending on the size of your plane, to leave it there. And a hangar is a protective kind of building where the plane is under, so it stays protected from the elements outside.
And did you actually move the aircraft to Oregon in December of 2016?
Yes, I did.
Did you ever intend for the aircraft to return to California after December 2016?
No, I never wanted to see that plane again ever.
Had you been trying to sell it?
For a few years, yeah.
And so did the aircraft actually ever return to California?
No.
Okay. So would you describe this as a permanent relocation of the aircraft or just a temporary one?
It was meant to be permanent.
And just for the record, so it's clear, as of January 1, 2017, what was the home base of the aircraft?
Oregon.
Does Air 7 LLC have an office in Oregon?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Now, did the plane leave Oregon in 2017?
Yes, it did.
Why?
There was interest in the plane, so we had to move it to a Gulfstream, place, and the closest one was Las Vegas.
For maintenance?
It had maintenance issues, and when a person wants to buy a plane, they want it inspected. So
When they make a fairly large purchase, they want to review what the aircraft is, how it's doing?
Well, whenever you buy anything that moves, especially in the air, you want to make sure it's sound before you get into it. So the plane moved there to be inspected by Gulfstream.
Just a few more questions. Were you assessed taxes in Ventura County for the 2016 tax year?
Yes.
And did you pay those taxes?
Yes.
I'd like to hand out two quick exhibits. Move them here. this one first, the bill first. This can be 32, and this could be 33.
Okay, so we'll call these applicants exhibits 32 and 33, and is there a preference on which is which?
If the bill could be 32.
Okay.
And the payment could be 33. And Mr. Corral, I put Exhibit 32 and Exhibit 33 in front of you. Are these true and correct copies of the tax bill for 2016 and Air 7's payment for the 2016 taxes?
Yes.
No further questions on direct. I'd like to reserve time for redirect if necessary.
Sure. Any other information you'd like to share at this point?
Not for Mr. Corral. I don't know if the assessor wants to wait till the end to do cross, or if they'd like to do it now. Or if they don't have any cross for Mr. Corral.
I have a few questions on cross. I would defer to the board in terms of time.
Yeah, we generally would hear the entire presentation unless you want to break it up just for the sake of information, but,
No, that's fine.
okay.
Do you mind if we let Mr. Corral go back and sit down, and then
It's
we
fine.
can come back up?
Yep.
The cross? Thank you, Mr. Corral.
Great. If we could please turn to Exhibit 10. This is an email from Mr. Efrain Escora, Appraiser 3 at the Ventura County Assessor, citing to California Code of Regulations, Section 205, also known as Rule 205, subsection B, and annotation 740.0003 as references in support of his position to tax the aircraft for the 2017 fiscal year. Mr. Escora states, Rule 205, subsection B provides that general aircraft are accessible in the county where they are habitually situated. The location where an aircraft is habitually situated is the airport at which the aircraft is usually present when not in flight, i.e., the location where the aircraft spends most of its ground time. Thus, if an aircraft spends a substantial amount of time at multiple airports, it is habitually situated at the airport where it spends the most ground time. Please turn to Exhibit 11. This is a copy of Title 18, California Code of Regulations, Section 205, entitled Movable Property. The county assessor is using Section 205 to argue that the N575PK aircraft is habitually situated in Ventura County during the year preceding the January 1, 2017 lien date, and is therefore claiming that its tax situs is in Ventura County for the 2017 fiscal year. However, this Part B of Section 205 only applies to an aircraft that spends time at multiple airports during that year. The subject aircraft did not have multiple situses that required a determination of where the aircraft was habitually situated. For instance, as we said right now, Air 7 paid 100% of its property tax for 2016 year, never claimed apportionment, didn't claim multiple situses. Our situation here involves a complete change of situs. Section 205 does not apply to an aircraft that has been permanently removed from the county prior to the lien date of January 1, 2017, was not in California on the lien date, and never again returned to California. Conveniently, the assessor does not point to Section 205A that states movable property has situs where located on the lien date if it has been in the county for more than 6 of the 12 months immediately preceding the lien date, and, it's an and, not an or, if it is to remain in or be returned to the county for any substantial period during the 12 months immediately succeeding the lien date. In our situation, the aircraft was not located in California on the lien date of January 1, 2017. The aircraft had permanently relocated to Oregon prior to the lien date, and its new situs was Oregon. In Exhibit 10, Mr. Escora also cites to property tax annotation 740.0003. We included this annotation in Exhibit 12. And it states, in the event of taxable situs in more than one state, the primary taxable situs and the secondary taxable situs must be determined.
Can you
Time
clarify,
spent by-
sorry, can you clarify where you are right now? You had said Exhibit 10.
Exhibit 12,
Okay. And so that's a one page, okay.
and then I've highlighted the relevant section.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure. It states, in the event of taxable situs in more than one state, the primary taxable situs and the secondary taxable situs must be determined. The time spent by the aircraft in the state in which the aircraft has acquired secondary taxable situs divided by 365 days provides the percentage of fair market value to be prorated to the state of secondary taxable situs. Mr. Escora then concludes in his email in Exhibit 10, and it says, per the documentation provided, the aircraft acquired situs at Ventura County for lien date 2017. However, as of the January 1, 2017 lien date, there was no secondary situs for the subject aircraft. As of the lien date for the 2017 fiscal year, the aircraft had only one situs, and that was Oregon. Please turn to Exhibit 13. This is a copy of the California Property Tax Navigator, Section 2, Jurisdiction to Tax and Constitutional Issues. Page 13-2 states, the taxable situs of property in California is the county, city, and district in which it is situated. Thus, a jurisdiction can generally impose a property tax on an item of property only if that property is located within the boundaries of that jurisdiction on the lien date. And again, the subject aircraft was not located in Ventura County on the lien date. That is not where its situs was. The situs was in Oregon. It further states, tangible personal property is taxable in the taxing locality where it has acquired a permanent situs, regardless of the owner's domicile. This is true even though the property is temporarily absent on the lien date. The taxable situs of the property is changed only when the item is permanently removed from the taxing locality. And it cites Brock and Company versus Board of Supervisors case. If you turn to Exhibit 14, we're providing a copy of the Brock and Company versus Board of Supervisors case. And let me just give you a really brief background on this. Brock and Company is a jeweler company specializing in selling jewelry, and it has offices in Beverly Hills and Los Angeles. And so what Mr. Brock did every single year was take about $120,000 of jewelry, ship it to Honolulu right before the lien date, and then after the lien date, the jewelry would come back to LA or Beverly Hills. So basically, he was trying to evade the property tax system by temporarily removing the jewelry to Honolulu and bringing it back every single year until he was caught. Please turn to page 14-3. In Brock, the court held that the term situated connotes a more or less permanent location or situs, and the requirement of permanency must attach before tangible property which has been removed from the domicile of the owner will attain a situs elsewhere. In other words, the Brock case holds that tangible personal property is taxable in the locality where it has an established permanent situs, irrespective of the owner's domicile, and that the jewelry there involved was merely temporarily removed outside the state with the intention of presently returning it. Hence, it was not beyond the jurisdiction of the state to tax. So unlike the property in Brock, our situation does not involve a temporary relocation of the aircraft. The subject aircraft was permanently relocated to Oregon on December 28, 2016, which is prior to the January 1, 2017 lien date. And unlike the property in Brock, the M575PK aircraft, it didn't come back to California because it was unsuccessful in being sold. It was permanently removed from California and was ultimately sold to a non-California buyer. The Brock case further states, it is therefore obvious that if the merchandise here involved acquired only a temporary abiding place in Honolulu, the assessment of the taxing authority of Los Angeles County was proper. On the other hand, if, as is asserted by appellant, the jewelry acquired a permanent situs in Honolulu when it was consigned to Wickman and Company, its taxation in Los Angeles County constitutes a violation of the Due Process Clause of the federal Constitution. So what this is basically saying is the fact that the assessor continued to assess this aircraft and didn't cancel the bill, even after we demonstrated that the aircraft permanently was based in Oregon, violated the Due Process Clause of the federal Constitution, according to the holding in Brock. Please turn to Exhibit 15. This is also the Brock case, but it's the Supreme Court of California case because Brock filed an appeal, and the court affirms the prior opinion and states on page 15-4, there is no duty to maintain property permanently in a jurisdiction where it will be subject to the taxing power, but it may be removed to a non-taxing jurisdiction and escape the imposition of taxes if such removal be permanent. Again, our aircraft, the subject aircraft here, was permanently removed to the state of Oregon prior to the lien date for 2017. Please turn to Exhibit 16. This is California Revenue and Taxation Code Section 404, which states, all taxable property except state-assessed property shall be assessed by the assessing agency of the taxing agency where the property is situated. So Section 404 again cites to the Brock case and repeats the definition of situated and the requirement of permanency for the property to attain a situs elsewhere. Please turn to Exhibit 17. This is California Revenue and Taxation Code Section 405, which states, annually, the assessor shall assess all the taxable property in his county except state-assessed property to the persons owning, claiming, possessing, or controlling it on the lien date. This section again points to the importance of the lien date and that the assessor shall assess all the taxable property in his county on the lien date. Please turn to Exhibit 18. This is California Revenue and Taxation Code Section 401.3, entitled Assessment According to Value on Lien Date. And it states the assessor shall assess all properties subject to general property taxation on the lien date as provided in Articles 13 and 13A of the Constitution and any legislative authorization thereunder. Going to Exhibit 19. This is California Revenue and Taxation Code Section 2192, entitled Lien Date, which states, except as otherwise specifically provided, all tax liens attach annually as of 12:01 a.m. on the first day of January preceding the fiscal year for which the taxes are levied. These exhibits demonstrate the importance of the lien date and that tax liens attach annually on the lien date. Please turn to Exhibit 20. This is the Assessor's Handbook, Section 577, entitled Assessment of General Aircraft.
I'm sorry, could you hold on one second? I want to make a note before you keep going. Thank you. Hold on one sec. Okay. Thank you.
If you turn to page 20-2, on the top it states lien date. Sections 2192, the local roll, and 722 board roll specify that the annual lien date is January 1. Personal property is assessable only if taxable on this date. Please turn to page 20-4, which states aircraft are assessable if they have situs in a particular county on the lien date, and the assessment must be made timely to be valid. Please turn to page 20-6. Chapter 4 situs states, for property tax purposes, an aircraft situs is established on the lien date. On the lien date, aircraft with situs in California are accessible by the taxing agency of the jurisdiction in which they are habitually situated. I mean, this says it all. Only if the aircraft has situs in California on the lien date can it be taxed by the taxing agency in which the aircraft is habitually situated. In our case, the aircraft no longer had situs in California on the lien date for the 2017 fiscal year and had acquired situs in Oregon. Therefore, the aircraft was no longer accessible in California. Please turn to Exhibit 21, page 21-2. This is the Annual Aircraft Property Statement, 2017 Form 577, issued by the Ventura County Assessor's Office for the N575PK aircraft. The top left-hand side of the statement, in parentheses, says, declaration of costs and other related property information as of 12:01 a.m., January 1, 2017. If you turn to page 21-3, on the very top, in capital letters, it says, please enter information as of January 1 of this year. And if you turn to page 21-4, after general instructions, it states all information provided should be as of January 1. Therefore, January 1 is a critical date on which the aircraft should be located and based in the county and state, and the information provided to the assessor must be as of January 1 in order to be assessed property tax. The subject aircraft was not based in Ventura County on the lien date of January 1, 2017, and was permanently relocated to Oregon prior to the lien date for the 2017 fiscal year. If you turn to Exhibit 22, this is the Church versus City of Los Angeles case. In this case, plaintiff, a resident of the City of Los Angeles, was in the business of breeding, training, and racing horses, and it had 2 ranches in Santa Clara County. When the horses are ready for racing, they are shipped to various locations in California, and it just so happened that the horses were in LA County on the lien date. And the plaintiff was assessed a property tax by the LA County assessor. The tax was paid under protest and an appeal was filed. And on page 22-2, the California Second District Court of Appeal held that tangible personal property is to be taxed at the place where it is permanently located. That place is the situs of the property for tax purposes. The court found that the permanent location for the horses was in Santa Clara County and that their temporary presence in LA County was not enough to authorize the LA County assessor to tax plaintiff's property. And the court affirmed the trial court's finding that the taxes assessed and collected by the LA County treasurer and tax collector were unlawful. Please turn to Exhibit 23. This is property tax annotation 630.0025. And basically it states that plastic sheets that are used to cover strawberry fields for the 9-month growing season are not accessible to the grower for property tax purposes if they are acquired after the lien date and they're disposed of prior to December 31. I really like this annotation because in this annotation, I mean, those plastic covers were there for 9 months during the year preceding the lien date. They were taking advantage technically of the benefits, opportunities, and protections, right, of the county where those plastic sheets were. But because the sheets were disposed of prior to the lien date, that's it, not taxable. Please turn to Exhibit 24. This is 72 American Jurisprudence, Second Edition, State and Local Taxation, Section 564, entitled Removal from State of Domicile. Section 564 states, the owner of tangible personal property is under no duty to maintain it permanently in a jurisdiction where it is subject to the taxing power, but he or she may remove it to a non-taxing jurisdiction and escape the imposition of taxes. However, the right of a state to tax personal property of one domiciled there is not taken away by the fact that the owner temporarily removes such property from the state. The operation of the maxim mobilia sequentur personam is nullified for taxation of tangible personal property only to the extent that such property has acquired a factual permanent situs elsewhere. However, if the removal of tangible personal property to another jurisdiction is intended to be temporary only, it remains taxable at its permanent situs, even though the purpose of the removal was tax evasion or tax reduction. In short, not until the property acquires an actual situs elsewhere does the domicile lose the right to tax. When, however, the domiciled owner removes such property from the state, never to return it, it is no longer taxable there, even if its stay in a particular foreign state is only temporary. The fact that such removal from the state is effected with the purpose of evading a personal property tax at the owner's domicile does not, if such removal is permanent, subject such property to taxation in such state. So in our case, the applicant removed the subject aircraft from the state of California prior to the lien date for the 2017 fiscal year and intended never to return it to California. When the aircraft acquired actual situs in Oregon, California lost the right to tax the aircraft. Please turn to Exhibit 25. This is 72 American Jurisprudence, second edition, State and Local Taxation, Section 592, entitled Aircraft. Please turn to page 25-2. Section 592 states, moreover, evidence that an aircraft was relocated from one state to a second state after a hurricane, that the aircraft owners maintained aircraft logbooks, maintenance records, and paperwork in the second state, and that the aircraft remained at an airport in the second state as part of lease agreement to store the aircraft, is legally and factually sufficient to support the finding that the corporate aircraft was located in the second state for more than a temporary period for purposes of assessing ad valorem taxes. So similarly, the aircraft in this case was relocated from California to Oregon per the affidavit of Flo Newton, president of Global Aviation, under penalty of perjury. The term of the hangar space lease and aviation services agreement was from December 26, 2016 through December 31, 2017, and that the aircraft logbooks, maintenance records, and paperwork for the aircraft was in Oregon. Ms. Newton's affidavit also attested to the fact that the aircraft remained at the Portland-Hillsboro Airport as part of this agreement until a buyer was found for the aircraft. Therefore, this evidence should also be legally and factually sufficient to support the finding that the aircraft was located in Oregon for more than a temporary period, and Oregon was its permanent situs for the 2017 fiscal year. Please turn to Exhibit 26. This is one taxing California property, Section 715, entitled General Lien Date. Section 715 states, in California, the lien date is established as 12:01 a.m. on January 1, preceding the fiscal year for which the taxes are levied. Please turn to page 26-2. It says, the principle that jurisdiction to tax is conclusively determined as of the lien date has been confirmed in a decision where the property was removed to Nevada 38 days after the beginning of the tax year at issue. The taxpayer contended unsuccessfully that his tax bill should have been apportioned using the fraction 38 divided by 365. Multiple taxation, commerce clause, and due process arguments were handily disposed of by the court. The case that this Section 715 is referring to is the famous case of Siegmiller versus County of Nevada, and we provide that case in Exhibit 27 for your review. In Siegmiller, plaintiff Richard Siegmiller, a taxpayer whose business property was located in the County of Nevada, which is in California, as of the statutory assessment lien date, saw a partial refund of ad valorem property taxes when he relocated to another state during the next fiscal year. Please turn to page 27-2 at the bottom, which continues through page 27-3, and it states, under California law, the taxing agency's right to the taxes becomes fixed as of the lien date of the fiscal year to which they relate. Siegmiller concedes that his property was located entirely in California as of the lien date. Siegmiller submits that when he permanently relocated his property from California to another state in the fiscal year following the lien date, the county was constitutionally compelled to give him a pro rata refund of tax paid. The court determined that the Commerce Clause was not implicated here because Siegmiller simply moved his business from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction, from the permanent location in California to a permanent location in Nevada. There is no allegation that the property moved back and forth between states or that Siegmiller's business was an interstate operation, and it is only multiple taxation of interstate operations that offends the Commerce Clause. So far as due process is concerned, the only question is whether the tax and practical operation has relation to the opportunities, benefits, or protections conferred or afforded by the taxing state. This nexus is satisfied when the property taxed by the domicile state is permanently located within it as of the tax lien date, such that the property has not acquired a tax situs elsewhere. The court went on to state that the tax lien date is simply a practical method for determining that the taxpayer enjoyed the benefit of governmental services during the year preceding the assessment. So the Ventura County assessor's position in this case is that, well, because the taxpayer enjoyed the benefits, protection, and opportunities during the entire 2016 calendar year, that it should then must pay taxes to the 2017 fiscal year taxes to the County of Ventura, but that's not the case, because the key to an assessment is whether the aircraft actually has situs in Ventura County as of the lien date of January 1. It's a bright line test. And only if it has situs on January 1, then you look back and you say, okay, did it take advantage of the benefits, protections, and opportunities of that county? The Siegmiller court found that the property was permanently situated in and had its sole tax situs in California as of the lien date. Similarly, the subject aircraft was permanently situated in and had its sole tax situs in Oregon as of the lien date. The aircraft was not being used in interstate commerce operations. We did not request apportionment from various states. The applicant had previously paid the 2016 property tax bill, 100% of it to the Ventura County. However, the applicant permanently removed the aircraft from California to Oregon prior to the 2017 lien date. Please turn to page 27-5. Footnote 3. It states, as the county points out, the presence of the property on a fixed lien date as a measurement for determining its taxability works both in favor of and against the taxpayer. For example, if he had moved his inventory into Nevada County, California on the day after the lien date, Siegmiller would have been able to operate for almost a full year before incurring any tax liability. Please turn to Exhibit 28. This is the 51 California Jurisprudence 3rd Edition Property Tax, Section 90, entitled Due Process Considerations. Section 90 states, so far as due process is concerned in the taxing of personal property, the only question is whether the tax and practical operation relates to opportunities, benefits, or protection conferred or afforded by the taxing state. Again, this nexus is satisfied when the property taxed by the domicile state is permanently located within it as of the tax lien date, such that the property has not acquired a tax situs elsewhere. So once again, our aircraft in the subject case was not permanently located in California as of the tax lien date and had changed its tax situs to Oregon. Ventura County should not have assessed tax on this aircraft for the 2017 fiscal year. Exhibit 29 is the hierarchy of property tax authorities that we just include in every submission. In Exhibit 30 is the Assessment Appeals Manual, which discusses evidence, presumptions, and burden of proof. And if you please turn to page 30-14. Under the preponderance of evidence standard, it states, unless otherwise provided by the law, the required standard of proof in California is proof by a preponderance of the evidence. A preponderance of evidence is usually defined in terms of probability of truth and as evidence which, when weighed against evidence offered in opposition to it, has more convincing force and the greater probability of truth. We have provided sufficient, indeed substantial evidence during this hearing that proves by a preponderance of the evidence that Air 7 LLC intended to permanently base the aircraft in Oregon as of December 28, 2016, which is prior to the lien date for the 2017 fiscal year. Therefore, the Ventura County Assessor should have canceled the 2017 property tax on the M575PK aircraft. We urge you to render a decision in favor of the taxpayer. Thank you so very much for your time and attention.
Okay, great, thank you. We'll go next to questions from the assessor to the applicant related to their presentation. It's before 11. Does anyone need a break for a few minutes, or we good to go? Okay, so go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chairmember Stern. I'm Jacqueline Smith, Assistant County Counsel on behalf of the Assessor's Office. I have several questions for the owner of the plane. I'm not sure if he would like to approach.
Bring them back up.
Sure. Welcome back, Mr. Corral. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Corral.
Good morning.
You testified that you had been trying to sell this plane for several years. Is that correct?
Yes,
In fact, you purchased this plane in 2015. Isn't that true?
yes.
All right. So when did you begin trying to sell your plane?
2015.
So you both purchased a plane and immediately began trying to sell it.
Yes, I purchased it to sell it.
I see. You also testified that, well, and you paid taxes in 2016 to the County of Ventura for that plane. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. You also filed an appeal on that 2016 tax bill. Isn't that true?
Yes.
All right. And you subsequently dismissed it. Isn't that the case?
I'm sorry?
You subsequently dismissed the appeal in that case. Isn't that true?
I really don't remember, to tell you the truth.
Okay. You testified that your plane moved back and forth between California and Texas, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall which airplane in Texas your plane frequented?
Which place?
I'm sorry, airport.
I have an office there. I used to have an office there. That's what the FSBO was. And I don't remember the name of the airport. Sorry.
You don't recall the name of the airport that your plane frequented?
Yes, I don't. I can't remember it.
Okay. Approximately how much time do you think your plane spent in calendar year 2016 at any airport in Texas?
I don't really remember exactly how much time. It moved around a little bit.
All right. But you would agree that your plane was parked at the Camarillo Airport for 7.5 months in 2016. Isn't that true?
I don't remember the exact time, but it did spend a lot of time in Camarillo.
All right. And are you the owner of Air 7?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And Air 7 is headquartered at the Camarillo Airport, correct?
Yes.
And your principal place of business is Camarillo, correct?
It is now, yes.
And it was in 2017, isn't that true?
Well, there are two parts to Air 7. One of them is we had a FSBO in Texas where it actually was registered there for Air 7, and then there's Air 7 business that's in California.
All right. Mr. Coral, I'm looking at the hangar lease agreement that you submitted in this case dated December 22nd, 2016. And in that agreement, which is signed on behalf of Air 7, it states that the principal place of business for Air 7 is Camarillo, California. Do you agree with that representation?
Which page are you looking at?
The first page,
Which paragraph?
the first paragraph.
Which exhibit, Ms. Smith?
I'm sorry, this is in the Assessor's Exhibit F, and
They don't have that.
Yeah, assessor's exhibits haven't been submitted yet, so this is only applicant's exhibits.
all right, let me find it in there. Applicant's
We see it.
Exhibit
8, page 1, first paragraph.
Correct. So, Mr. Coral, would you agree that at least as of December 2016, your business was representing Camarillo, California as its principal place of business?
Yes.
Did you, I'm sorry, Mr. Cole, did you pay taxes on your plane to any other jurisdiction for lien date January 1, 2017?
No.
Did you pay any taxes for your plane in fiscal year 2017?
No.
All right, nothing further. I believe my colleague, Mr. Horn, may have a few questions.
Thank you. Sir, I believe you stated that you moved the plane to Oregon to be closer to the seller. Was that correct? Did
Yes.
I hear?
Mr. Fowler, yeah.
Okay. But in looking at the listing and commission agreement,
He's my employee, he's not an agent.
I'm sorry?
The fellow that lives in Oregon is my employee, he's not an agent.
He's not the seller.
Okay. Oh, I'm
he
sorry.
works for the
I
company.
thought you said you moved the plane to be closer to the seller.
Yeah, he's part of the selling group, and he was coming back and forth, so we just decided to move it so it'd be near him.
Okay. I got confused because the listing agreement shows Colleyville, Texas as the person attributable to, was it, is it Privy Jet Sales? Is that who it is? In your
That's the
Exhibit 31?
Is that the broker?
That's the listing broker who helped him find a buyer.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just trying to get a handle on the movable parts. So you had someone in Oregon who was assisting with the sale, but the listing agreement was for someone based in Texas?
Well, I think that was originally, yes, I think.
Okay. You say originally, was there someone additional or an additional listing agreement?
No, when
Okay.
time elapsed, you know.
The argument Ms. Beladian states is that the plane was permanently removed from California.
That's correct.
Okay. You were in the process of selling the plane ever since 2015? Ever since you acquired it?
We tried to sell it, yes.
Is it fair to say that you were trying to flip the plane, purchase it, and then sell it for a profit?
Correct.
Okay. So why didn't, if you were in the process of selling the plane, why didn't it really, if the gentleman was moving back and forth from Oregon to California, why didn't the plane stay in California to sell?
We really didn't have any luck moving it. So we all decided to move it over there.
You stated you have an office in Oregon. Is that office at the Hillsborough Airport where the plane was hangared?
The office is actually at Salem, Oregon.
How far is Salem from the airport?
I don't have a clue.
Okay. But Air 7 has a hangar and its headquarters at an airport in Camarillo.
Yes.
Okay. I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go to questions from the board to the applicant. Mr. Crowe, any? Okay. I just had a couple of questions, and I may have more later. I think my one biggest question from listening to the testimony so far, there were reference to several different sections of the law and cases, but in the R&T Code 2192, I think that's where it established the lien date and the site, the status or location of the property on the lien date being what determines how it should be assessed. But it wasn't clear to me whether the lien date applies to the coming year or the past year. So I'm wondering if there's clarification from maybe what you already presented that clarifies that. I know the word habitually located was used, so to me, that might have indicated that it means going backward, but I'm looking for clarification.
Sure. So technically, the lien date of January 1, 2017 covers the fiscal year of July 1, 2017 through June 30, 2018. But because, for a practical matter, because no one really knows how that aircraft is going to be used prospectively, they look back to the preceding calendar year to see, okay, was the aircraft used in this county? Where was it based? Where was it situs as of January 1? And if it was situs, let's say, in California on January 1, then we look to see, okay, are there multiple situses, to different states? Should we give apportionment? Should we, then we look at the habitually situated analysis.
If I could jump in just to add a little bit too. As Ms. Valadian mentioned, the taxes for the 2017 fiscal year, which is July 1, 17 to June 30, 18, attach as of the lien date. And so the lien date is important for a lot of things. It determines taxability, it determines if you're exempt on the lien date, value is all as of the lien date. The lien date is kind of just this practical method to use. And in terms of taxability of movable property, the question is kind of a two-parter. One, is it taxable as of the lien date? Only then do you go to the second answer, which do you need to apportion that tax basis? But the first question is always, is it taxable as of the lien date? And the reason for that, and it's in discussed in some cases here and there, is basically you have to give the assessors kind of a bright line, otherwise it's just all over the place. And so that's the purpose of the lien date. It used to be March 1 back in the day, and then they changed it to January 1. But it's always been that specific moment in time that determines the taxability.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions for now from the board?
Question to the attorney. So where would were any taxes paid for on January 1st, 2017?
Well, he was assessed taxes by Ventura County, so he paid those, which we're currently fighting, obviously. And then Oregon does not have a tax on aircraft, so it wasn't taxed in Oregon. And in the case law, it's very clear when determining situs, it doesn't matter if you're taxed or not, because some jurisdictions just don't tax. So it doesn't matter if you get a tax bill or not. It's really an irrelevant question. It's where was it based out of as of that date.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Crowe? Okay. We may have more questions coming up.
Can we do just a quick question on redirect? I just want to Fine. Can we just do one question on redirect? I just want to kind of clarify that confusion. I don't think it's going to be all too controversial. It's just as to the person in Oregon and who he is. Mr. Corral, the person in Oregon you're referring to in your direct and then on cross, he's an employee of Air 7 LLC, is that correct?
Yes, he is.
Okay, and he was the one at Air 7 LLC who was tasked with selling the property, is that, or selling the aircraft, excuse me, is that correct?
Yes, he's in charge of marketing and sales for us.
Okay, that's all. Just wanted to clear that up.
I have one other question as well.
Go ahead.
Mr. Corral, did you register your plane in the state of Oregon when it was moved there in 2017?
That's a good question. Was it registered?
It was not registered, but, Mr. Corral actually hired an attorney to look into whether he needed to register the aircraft in Oregon. And we have a letter from the attorney with us stating that it did not have to register the aircraft in Oregon for the time period that it spent in Oregon, even though it was permanently based in Oregon. And then as a follow-up, I personally sent an email to the Oregon Department of Aviation telling them the situation, telling them if a taxpayer permanently bases the aircraft in Oregon for 28 days, or as of the lien date of January 1, 2017, and then afterwards sells the aircraft to a non-Oregon buyer, does it have to register in Oregon? And I got a prompt response from them saying, no, it does not, and I have that as well we could produce. So there was no requirement for him to register the aircraft in Oregon.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask,
I just want to make sure, Ms. Porsche, that Ms. Smith finishes her question first before we go on to yours. Did you have any other?
I just want to make clear that the plane was not registered in Oregon and that those documents that you're discussing have never been provided to the assessor, correct?
You never asked for them. Nobody ever asked about Oregon registration to me before.
It's correct that you have not provided that documentation to the assessor, correct?
No, because nobody asked me for that.
All right, well, I think that's a matter of dispute, but
I think we understand the question and the answer.
I didn't know that they would even ask about that, so.
Okay. Ms.
Mr.
Porsche.
Chair, I think it might be helpful to the board if it's possible to obtain a copy of those documents that were referred to and have them introduced as additional exhibits.
Yes, please. So this would be. I guess we could do both of them together. One exhibit. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One for the console, one for the board. So that's one, and then this is just a search on Google showing that Oregon doesn't assess property tax on aircraft.
Thank you. Okay, so is there a preference in terms of numbering on exhibits?
The one that's the email and a letter from the attorney would be the first one.
Okay, so that would be 30,
Exhibit 32.
I think we're up to 34.
Oh, 30.
that would be 34, okay.
Okay.
And then the bigger packet, state tax guide, number 35?
Yes.
Okay.
Had a quick question regarding the lease on the hangar in Oregon that started in December. When was that entered into?
The hangar lease agreement, it was entered into on December 22, 2016, but prior to the January 1, 2017 lien date.
That's when it was signed by all parties?
Yes. And it's in exhibit. We've included that already.
Exhibit 8, and first paragraph on page 8-1 says December 22nd, 16.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, the sign date 8-14 says it's effective as of that date.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the board right now for the applicant? Mr. Crow, anything? And back to the assessor, Ms. Smith, any other questions?
Perhaps I misunderstood, Ms. Paladian, but did you say that you received a letter from the state of Oregon indicating that the plan?
An email. I sent them an email, just CYing myself, prepping.
And that's the February 4th email?
I think you have a copy.
Yes.
Yeah.
The first page of Exhibit 34.
All right. Thank you. Nothing further.
Okay, so we'll go next to the assessor's presentation. Take a break. Let's take a break just for like 3 or 4 minutes, and we'll come back with that.
Thank you.
Okay, we're back in session at 11:22. Hearing item 8 on the agenda, Air 7 LLC. And it's time for the assessor's presentation.
Thank you, members of the board. Jacqueline Smith, Assistant County Counsel on behalf of the assessor. Members of the board, the applicant is asking that this board find that because Air 7 moved its plane just 3 days prior to the lien date, that the plane escapes taxation from the jurisdiction where it was habitually situated in the year prior. No case or property tax rule in California supports this interpretation of the law. The applicant in its presentation placed great weight on the fact that the plane was not located in Ventura County on the lien date, January 1st, 2017, and that this somehow means that Ventura did not have jurisdiction to tax, or that the plane was not situated in Ventura County for the lien date, January 1st, 2017. But of course, it is not the location of movable property on the lien date that determines situs. This would open up an easy loophole, as the Brock case discussed, to simply move property on the lien date to avoid taxation. And this case isn't a far cry from that. Instead of moving the property on the lien date, the property was moved 3 days before the lien date. I thought that Chair Member Stern asked a very important question, which is a foundational question in this case. What is the lien date, and what is the relevant period of time that we look to determine situs as of a particular lien date? The case of Siegmiller versus County of Nevada establishes that rule. The Siegmiller case states that a tax lien date is simply a practical method for determining that the taxpayer enjoyed the benefit of governmental services during the year preceding the assessment. So it's calendar year 2016 that we're looking at to determine jurisdiction to tax for lien date January 1, 2017. And if this board looks to the flight logs where this plane was located in 2016, you will see that for 7.5 months out of the year, the plane was parked at the Camarillo Airport. This is more time than the plane spent in any other location. In fact, it primarily spent 1 visit at a particular airport, or at most 2 visits, and always returned to the Camarillo Airport. In 2016, it is clear that this plane was habitually situated in Ventura County. All that is needed for a jurisdiction to assert property tax is for the property to have received the benefits, opportunities, and protections of that jurisdiction. So in this case, 7.5 months out of the year, and arguably for the totality of the year, because Air 7 is headquartered in Camarillo, the plane received the benefits and protections that Ventura County had to offer. Its police services, its airport services, its commercial services, etc. That's the nexus that's required to establish situs. How much time was spent there? Did it receive those opportunities, benefits, and protections sufficient to give that jurisdiction authority to tax it? So the fact that this plane was moved 3 days before January 1st, 2017, up to Oregon doesn't delete the preceding 7.5 months when the plane was receiving all of those benefits and protections here in Ventura County and the state of California, because the plane, when it wasn't in Ventura, was oftentimes in other jurisdictions within the state of California. So the majority of the time in 2016, that plane was in Ventura County, and even beyond that, in the state of California. And those contacts are sufficient to establish situs to tax that plane on January 1st, 2017. The applicant hopes to persuade this board of a rule that would not be sustainable. The plane owner testified that no taxes were paid on this plane to any other jurisdiction for lien date January 1st, 2017, nor were any taxes paid for the following calendar year, 2017. So for where this plane was at in all of 2016 and all of 2017, while Air 7 owned it, the plane wasn't sold until the end of April 2017. Who has situs? Who has jurisdiction to tax, if not Ventura County? No other tax bills have been presented. The applicant's position is that this plane acquired situs in Oregon, and so California lost its jurisdiction to tax, but the plane was in Oregon for only 28 days. In fact, the applicant just submitted documentation to the board that the plane was in Oregon for such a short period of time that it didn't even have to register the plane. So surely that is not sufficient to establish that situs of this plane for purposes of taxing it was transferred to Oregon. Oregon didn't tax this plane. Oregon didn't even require the plane to be registered there. And factually, the plane was there for less than a month. On those facts, there is nothing to suggest that situs of this plane transferred to Oregon for purposes of the January 1st, 2017 lien date. The controlling law that this board should look to for purposes of situs is Property Tax Rule 205. That rule contains 2 parts. The first part addresses movable property, which is within the taxing jurisdiction on
Ms.
the...
Smith, sorry, can I stop you for a second? Is this referred to in one of the assessor's exhibits?
It is. My apologies. This is Exhibit H, page 2.
Exhibit H, page 2?
Yes, thank you.
And this was Rule 205?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So this rule addresses various situations in regards to where a plane is located on the lien date. I would point out that very specific rules address the taxation of aircraft. And so a lot of the materials, supporting materials in the applicant's binder cite to inapplicable tax law because they do not address aircraft. They address other types of personal property or even real estate. Property Tax Rule 205 specifically addresses aircraft, and that's in Subdivision B. Subdivision B states that aircraft, other than those subject to these other sections, which don't apply here, have situs for taxation purposes at the airport in which they are habitually situated when not in flight. An aircraft that spends a substantial amount of time at each of 2 or more airports has its tax situs at the airport where it spends the greatest amount of time. In this case, the plane spent 7.5 months parked at the Camarillo Airport in 2017, more time than it spent at any other airport. And so the second portion of this doesn't really apply because there's nothing to suggest that there's some other airport in the mix here where this plane spent equal amount of time to how often it was in Ventura County to determine there are multiple situses for this plane. But even if that second portion were to apply, the plane spent the greatest amount of time at the Camarillo Airport. There's no other airport that comes close to the amount of time that the plane was parked in Camarillo. And so under this rule, it is clear that Camarillo has situs to tax the plane on lien date January 1st, 2017. And the fact that Air 7 moved its plane outside of the jurisdiction at the 11th hour does not mean that this rule no longer applies to it. Property Tax Rule 205A discusses the rules generally for movable personal property. So in addition to subdivision B, which gives Ventura County, or which establishes that situs of the plane was Ventura County, Section A also supports that. The second paragraph of subdivision A talks about property that is within the jurisdiction on the lien date, which isn't the case here. We know that this plane was moved to Oregon on December 28th, 2016. So on the lien date of January 1, 2017, this plane was in Oregon. The third paragraph of subdivision A discusses what to do under those circumstances. That portion says, property which does not have situs where located on the lien date has situs at the location where it is normally returned between uses, or if there is no such location at the principal place of business of the owner. So we know that the plane was located in Oregon on the lien date. And we also know that the plane did not have situs there. It was there for 28 days. It was never registered. It never paid taxes there. So on the lien date, this property was not in the jurisdiction that had situs, i.e. Ventura County. So what do you do when that happens? Situs is then established where the plane is normally returned to between uses, which is certainly the case here. Or if this board determines that it cannot say that Ventura County is where this plane normally returned between uses, then it looks to the principal place of business of the owner. Here, both of those things are Ventura County. Ventura County is both the place where the plane normally returned to, and it is also where the principal place of business for Air 7 is located. Air 7 hopes to convince this board of a new rule, which is that a plane can be moved outside of the jurisdiction at the 11th hour and avoid taxation. This is a bit of a ruse, and the board should not endorse a scheme such as this. The plane was in Ventura County for the majority of 2016. And the cases that the applicant cite to can be distinguished because they either do not address airplanes, as in this case, or in the case of Brock, that there are more applicable rules under the property tax rules which apply. Brock was a case that talked about jewelry. We're talking about airplanes. And the passages cited by the applicant are mere dicta. There is no case which holds that under the facts before this board, that means that the owner of the plane does not owe taxes in a jurisdiction where it spent the majority of the year preceding the lien date. If the board decides this case in applicant's favor, it establishes a new rule that penalizes the taxpayers and citizens of Ventura County, whose property tax dollars go towards the protections, the benefits, and the opportunities that this plane received while it was here in Ventura County. To allow a plane to receive all those benefits and protections, but then to escape taxation, endorses a scheme that allows for property tax evasion. Where else does this plane owe taxes if not here? This would open up an opportunity for other plane owners to do the same when they intend to sell a plane. Wait until the last moment, reap all the benefits of the year that your plane is here in Ventura, and move it at the 11th hour. And you avoid paying taxes. This should not be a scheme that this board endorses. And it is also against logic. Finally, if the board determines that by moving its plane just 3 days before the lien date, that Citus was transferred to Oregon, then the board should apportion taxes. Because at most, or at best, this plane had Citus in California and Oregon if the board adopts the applicant's interpretation. The law allows for apportionment if a plane has multiple Cituses. And while it is not the county's position that this plane ever established Citus in Oregon for purposes of lien date January 1, 2017, the Assessor's Handbook 577 addresses how the board would calculate the apportionment of those taxes. And I would submit on that unless my colleague, Mr. Horn, has any additional comments.
I think it would be beneficial if I went through the assessor's exhibits. Tab A is, in essence, what Ms. Smith discussed. B is the 2016 tax bill. Tab C is the completed aircraft property statement that was submitted to Ventura County for the subject plane. The home designated on this is Camarillo Airport. In page 2 of that, you see it signed by Vicki Baladian. That would be counsel here today. D goes into the flight logs that were provided to the assessor. Page 32 makes a notation that the subject aircraft was in Ventura County for approximately 7.5 months before its departure. 7.5 months throughout the calendar year of 2016. Tab E shows that Air 7 is headquartered here. Air 7's domicile is at Camarillo Airport. If you go to tab F, it's the hangar space agreement. And you'll note that on page 9, that all invoices are sent to the Camarillo address for Air 7. That's its headquarters. Tab G is the Oregon statutes for registering a plane. And we understand that the registration never happened because the plane wasn't there long enough for it to meet these requirements. This was more of a layover instead of a change in situs.
If I can also add, in this section, there's a citation to Oregon Statute 308.558, and the applicant asserted in their presentation that Oregon doesn't have property tax of planes, but this citation clearly says the opposite, that aircraft shall be subject to assessment, taxation, and exemption under certain circumstances in Oregon.
Can you remind us what page that is? It's in Exhibit.
Exhibit G, page 3.
Continuing, tab H is Revenue and Taxation Code 501. The assessor based the information, or based the valuation on the information in his possession. We move to Rule 205. One of the key components of 205, and I believe Ms. Smith touched on this, is as the assessor argues, situs wasn't established in Oregon. So if you go to the section that says property which does not have situs where located on the lien date pursuant to the previous paragraph has situs at the location where it is normally returned between uses, or if there is no such location, at the principal place of business of the owner. Camarillo Airport. Section I are annotations. If you one, two, I apologize for not numbering these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, geez, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, page 18, annotation 740.0066.
Okay, give us a second, please. To find-
Yes. Once you find that, you can flip 2 more pages. It'll say page 3 up at the top.
This is a
Okay, so we're near the back of section I. There's a page, there's a 3 on the top of the page.
And it says law and analysis.
Okay. 3 pages before the end of Exhibit I, right?
Correct.
Okay.
All right. The first paragraph. All property taxed by local government shall be assessed in the county, city, and district in which it is situated. The word situated, as used in Section 14 of the California Constitution, does not refer to mere physical presence on the lien date, but to the situs of the property within the state necessary to give jurisdiction to tax. We are saying that because of the lack of time in Oregon, situs remained in Ventura County. And because of that, as indicated in Rule 205, the tax, The property has been within this taxing jurisdiction for at least 6 of the 12 months immediately preceding the lien date. Camarillo, 7.5 months. Ventura County remains. It remains under the jurisdiction of Ventura County. J goes to AH 577 and talks about the situs. If you look at page 21 down at the bottom, or sorry, page 21, which is at the bottom, and then
We're in Exhibit J.
Exhibit J, page 21. It says page 21 down at the bottom. Okay. Ms. Smith touched on this. The interpretation of tax situs is that property must have such contacts as confer jurisdiction to tax. Ms. Baladian referenced that the due process clause was violated. And here it says due process requires that the nature of the contacts sufficient to support a state's power to tax must provide the opportunities, benefits, or protection afforded by the state. For movable personal property such as aircraft, the amount and nature of the contact of the property and its owner with a state necessary to establish tax situs is a factual determination. And then Exhibit K is the 441D letter that was sent to the applicant. I have no further comments. I don't know if you do.
Nothing further, thank you.
Okay. We'll go now to questions on the assessor's presentation from the applicant.
Okay, I'm going to lob most questions towards Ms. Smith. If Mr. Horn wants to answer, I don't mind who answers. So let's just begin with some basic property tax questions. The taxing question was imposed by the Ventura County assessor for what tax year?
The 2017 tax year.
2017 tax year. And what are the dates for the 2017 tax year, otherwise known as the fiscal year?
The fiscal year, that would be July 1, 2017 to June 30, 2018.
Okay. And what is the lien date for the 2017 tax year?
January 1,
Okay.
2017.
And am I correct in stating that the lien date is very important for determining taxability? For example, if you own personal property on the lien date in California, you're taxed for the entire upcoming tax year. Is that correct?
Yes. In this case, it would depend on.
Just generally, if I own.
Generally, yes.
This-
There are dynamics that can be added to the equation.
Okay. And just a few examples to kind of highlight this how the law works. So let's assume we have person A. They own an aircraft and use the aircraft in Ventura County through all of 2016 until December 2016. Let's go December 15th, 2016. They sell the aircraft to person B, who lives in Ventura County and continues to use the aircraft in Ventura County throughout the rest of 2016 and all throughout 2017. Who would be the person taxed for the 2017 tax year, A or B?
I would object that this is an improper hypothetical because these facts are not pending before the board. It calls for a legal conclusion, and I don't know what the relevancy of it is.
The assessor.
Maybe it can be restated. I think the question is dealing with, sounds like when the tax applies, but
Yeah.
If there's a way that you want to
We're allowed
rephrase
to
it.
ask hypotheticals to the people testifying as the expert for the assessor's office. They're testifying as the expert. And they've testified on the law and gave a lot of legal conclusions. So I want to have an understanding of how they view the law works. These hypotheticals are important to that because if they answer certain some ways, they might be contradicting themselves. And I just want to get a theory of how they work. So I can ask it again, but I don't think I can restate it. It's fairly simple. A owns an aircraft. They own it throughout 2016 until December 15, 2016. They sell it to person B, December 15, 2016. Person B continues to use the aircraft in Ventura County throughout the rest of 2016 and all of 2017. Who gets taxed for the 2017 tax?
I still
A
have,
or B?
I still have the same objection because that's a distinct factual situation than what's pending before the board. There's been no sale of the property here. I don't know the relevancy of the answer to that question.
Where we are right now is asking and answering questions related to the presentation made by the assessor or either party. So I don't know if there's a way that the question can be asked related to the presentation of the assessor, but that might be helpful.
This is related to the presentation. They made a bunch of comments of when property is taxed based upon the lien date, whether it's taxed based upon whether it's there in the county prior, even if it's no longer in the lien date. And so this is relevant getting to their understanding of the law. If they can't answer because they don't know the answer, it might highlight their maybe lack of knowledge on the issue, but that's fine if they say we can't answer. But it's a fairly basic factual pattern. And of course, it's not a factual pattern in the facts, it's a hypothetical. That's the point of a hypothetical. But it is analogous to the law that they're citing. And I want to see how they view the law and how it works. I think that's a relevant question to ask.
Where there's been no sale, I don't see the relevancy of that question.
I understand. Ms. Porsche, do you have any comments?
I think the board can give, if the board asks for an answer, the board can give it the weight that the board determines needs to be given because there is no sale in this case. But if the board permits the applicant to make a record on this fact, they can give the appropriate weight to the record, and it's one less challenge for the board later on.
So I guess my question is,
I think it's the board chair's determination if you think it would be helpful to have this series of hypotheticals explored. And the board can decide how much weight they want to give to the answers that pertain to a sale when there's no sale in the instant case.
And if I could just add maybe one, sorry, go ahead.
one second. So in this case, not hypothetically, but literally, if the question is a hypothetical and the assessor doesn't want to answer it, obviously, the board can't compel the assessor to answer. We can move along. I think I understand the nature of the question.
The board could make a determination that they believe the answer to a hypothetical could be useful and actually instruct the witness to answer if the board decided that it would be helpful to the board to hear questions and answers. But you could compel the witness to answer if you thought it would be helpful to your determination in the case.
I understand. Okay. You got a comment?
Yeah, just to kind of show you how it's relevant, there's going to be some follow-ups on this, follow-up hypotheticals. One of the major issues in this case, the assessors kind of presented two arguments. One is, if it's in the county for all the calendar year leading up to the lien date, it's taxable. And I want to show that that's not the case through these hypotheticals, because that's clearly not the law. And that's, I think, one of the reasons they want to answer the question is because it is who owns it and where it is permanently located as of the lien date. That is the relevant test. And these hypotheticals are meant to punch holes in one of the assessor's argument. So generally always the point of hypotheticals, and that's what we're trying to do. So they said if they don't want to, they say they don't know, that's fine, I'll move on. I can ask the other two. I want to make a full record, because if I don't ask the questions here, I'm not allowed to ask them in court. So I need to make a full record, and then obviously not allowing someone to ask questions is oftentimes for reversible error. So even if they don't want to answer, I feel like I need to get them on the record.
Well, can I respond to that briefly? I disagree with the characterization of the assessor's argument or position in this case. And also, I don't know, this case boils down to a legal question for the board. The facts are relatively not in dispute. They are what they are. And this board will be charged with the responsibility of determining how the facts apply to the law. Council can argue about what the law is, and they're asserting the law is one thing, we're asserting the law is another. If that's their position, they can provide the citation for their position. They haven't done that. And so going through a series of hypotheticals doesn't change what the law is.
Understand.
I think I would advise my client not to answer hypotheticals because we don't have the opportunity to contemplate what's being proposed or how the law works on that. I don't know that those answers would be reliable.
Okay, so to the board, here are my thoughts, Mr. Crow and Mr. Curtis. All information is interesting to me to consider. So the more information we have, the better decisions we can make. If the assessor doesn't answer the question, I think we should move on, but we still need to understand, our goal, I think, is to understand the law on to what period of time this applies. I think that seems to be the core. So one way or another, we'll get to it. So we'll leave it to the assessor unless there are any comments, questions.
I think normally we don't consider hypotheticals.
Yeah.
It's typically, if you wanted to throw out a your issue, it would be done in your presentation, not at this point. At this point, it's typically you're asking questions specifically of their presentation.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to ask them a question specific to their presentation of how they view the law applies to a hypothetical situation.
Okay.
It's relevant to what they're at. I mean, it's what they're presenting, and I want to see how they think it works.
Okay, so in terms of the question that was asked, any further comments on that, Ms. Smith?
Well, I'm going to instruct my client not to answer because those facts are not pending before the board, and I think it would be misleading.
Okay, I think the applicant has
If they don't want to
provided, scope of how, you can ask for specific information related to what you're talking about. So,
If they don't answer, they don't want to answer. I'm going to ask the two follow-up questions, which I assume will be the same answer that they don't want to answer. That's fine. I just want to get it on the record. Same facts as the prior one. A owns a property January 16, uses it throughout January 16 with one slight tweak. A sells the property to B, the aircraft to B, on January 2nd, 2017. Is A the one who is taxed, or is B the one who is taxed for the 2017 tax year?
And again, because those are not the facts of this case, I'm going to instruct my client not to answer.
Okay. Now, similar facts to the first question. A owns the aircraft in Ventura County, uses the aircraft in Ventura County for all of 2016 up until December 15, 2016. They also owned it on the January 1, 2016 lien date. But they sell the aircraft now to C, December 15, 2016, who lives in Florida and immediately takes the aircraft to Florida in December of 2016 and never returns to California with the aircraft. Would C receive a tax bill for the aircraft from Ventura County for the 2017 tax year?
Same objection.
okay. So, moving forward, if the applicant does have specific questions about this situation, I would think this would be a good time to ask.
So quickly stated, you stated that the aircraft only remained in Oregon for about a month. Where did the aircraft go after January 25th, 2017?
The aircraft went to Nevada.
And do you know why it went to Nevada?
Based on Ms. Baladian's testimony, it was for repairs.
And are you familiar with Revenue and Taxation Code, Section 220?
That talks about the addresses repairs?
Yes.
Yes.
Did the aircraft ever return to California in 2017 while it was owned by Air 7?
Can I truly answer that? Based on the logs and the information provided, it does not appear so.
Okay. Do you have any reason to question the flight logs?
I have no reason to question any of the documentation
But based on those logs, it did not return to
based
California?
on those logs.
I'm going to bring your attention back to your Exhibit B.
I'm sorry?
Your Exhibit B as in boy?
B as in boy, okay.
Now, the assessor testified that Air 7 received the benefits, protections, and opportunities from Ventura County while the aircraft was located in Ventura County for the 2016 year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And on Exhibit B, is this the 2016 tax year bill?
Yes.
And up on the top left corner, what does it say the fiscal year is for 2016 and 2017? For the 2016 tax year.
The fiscal year is July 1, 2016 to June 30th, 2017.
And did the taxpayer pay property taxes in Ventura County for the 2016 tax year?
Yes.
So the taxpayer paid for the benefits, protections, and opportunities it received in 2016.
Objection misstates the witness's testimony.
I just stated it. Yes or no? I'll repeat, did the taxpayer pay for the protections, benefits, and opportunities that it received during the 2016 tax year?
The 2016 tax bill was based on a January 1, 2016 lien date. And
Okay.
that date covers the next fiscal year, much like January 1, 2017 covers
And
the subsequent fiscal year.
they paid those taxes?
Yes, which are under protest today.
The 16 taxes, excuse me. They paid
I'm
those
sorry.
2016 taxes?
Yes.
Okay. Can you explain to me what a hangar agreement is?
The hangar agreement,
Just what is it?
it's a place to put your stuff,
In this case, an aircraft?
in this case, an aircraft.
Are aircraft normally returned to where they're hangared?
I'm sorry?
Are aircraft normally returned to where they're hangared?
Are they normally returned to?
In between uses, are they normally returned?
In this instance, and for the, I guess, quality of the plane that we're talking about, I would presume that it would be hangared.
Okay. And during 2017, I think you already answered this, but let me just make clear, in between the uses, it was never returned to California in between the uses, in between going to Nevada?
Not to my knowledge, based on the information that was provided.
Okay. Can we go to Rule 205, which I believe is the second page of Exhibit H? Is everyone there?
Go ahead.
So the second paragraph of subdivision A, the first sentence, it starts with movable property. Do you see that, Mr. Horn?
Yes.
Can you read that entire sentence?
Movable property has situs where located on the lien date if it has been in the county for more than 6 months of the 12 months immediately preceding the lien date, and if it is to remain in or to be returned or be returned to the county or any substantial period during the 12 months immediately succeeding the lien date.
Okay, and it's kind of a three-parter. The first part says movable property as situs were located on the lien date, correct?
Yes.
And then it says, if it has been in the county for more than 6 months of the 12 months immediately preceding the lien date, and this aircraft was in the county for more than 6 months immediately preceding the lien date. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. But the next part says, and if it is to remain or to be returned to the county for any substantial period during the 12 months immediately succeeding the lien date. Now, you just testified that it never returned to California in 2017.
Not to my knowledge.
Not to your knowledge. And so it didn't remain, and it wasn't here on the lien date, correct? Physically present.
Based on the flight logs and the hangar lease and the testimony of Flo, it's my understanding it was in Oregon as of January 1.
Okay, so it couldn't remain on the lien date because it wasn't here, and it never returned in the next succeeding 12 months, as you just stated, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
And perhaps so that in case there's any ambiguity, it's the assessor's position that because the property was on the lien date outside of the jurisdiction where there was situs, this paragraph does not apply. Instead, the subsequent paragraph, property which does not have situs where it's located on the lien date, is the applicable provision. So it's located on the lien date in Oregon, and it didn't have situs there. And so that section discusses how you determine situs under that factual situation.
Okay. Even though generally it says situs at the location where it's normally returned between uses, which we just heard is generally where the hangar agreement is, which is in Oregon, isn't that correct?
No, for the applicable time frame here, 2016, it was normally returned to Camarillo, and as discussed in the assessor's presentation, subdivision B, which addresses general aircraft, is the superseding rule, and that even under subdivision A, the result is the same.
Where in 205 does it say the rule is where it was located in 2016 and not where it was located on the lien date? And when I say located, I mean situated.
That's not, section 205 does not address lien date and what the relevant time frame is. That's Siegmiller. There's nothing in 205 which states whether you're looking at 2016 or 2017.
So I'll have to have you read the first paragraph, the second paragraph again, or I'll read it again. Movable property is situs where it's located on the lien date. Property which does not have situs where located on the lien date. It seems that 205 does mention the lien date quite a bit.
Your question was, where in 205 does it say that you look at 2016 to determine the 2017 lien date?
Yes. And then you responded that it doesn't say anything about the lien date.
Right. Property tax rule 205 does not address that question at all. I did not say that the word lien date is not in section 205, but it does not answer your question.
Okay, I guess I beg to differ. 205 specifically mentions that you look at where a property is situated as of the lien date, correct?
I'm sorry, if this is crossing, I'm confused. I don't want this to devolve into an argument back and forth between the two of us.
So this is related to Exhibit H, which has 205, and the question, can you just say the question one more time?
Yeah, question, Rule 205 specifically states that you have to look at where a property is situated as of the lien date.
For general aircraft, the rule is set forth in subdivision B.
Yes.
Okay, I think we have enough information for Rule 205 for the board to consider and understand the questions and answers, and it's understandable if the two parties don't agree on the interpretation. Unless the board has any other questions related to that.
Let's see. I think all the other points that I have highlighted are better dealt with on rebuttal and closing.
Okay, so what we'll do, we'll hear questions from the board, and then we'll have closing summaries, starting with assessor and then the applicant. If there is new information that causes more questions from either side, we'll allow that to go back and forth within reason until all the information's out.
Mr. Chair, can I just, so you want us to do kind of closing and rebuttal together?
Yes.
Okay.
As long as we get the information out, we'll also allow for questions if there's new information that comes up for clarification. But short answer, yes. So now we'll go to questions from the board to the assessor.
In your Exhibit A, I'm a little confused here at, under the key facts, you were saying that the property statement you received shows that the plane was located at Camarillo on January 1?
That's correct, and that's Exhibit C. So the applicant submitted an aircraft property statement that was received by the assessor on May 12th, 2017. So this is following the lien date. And even in that statement, the applicant identifies the aircraft location as the Camarillo Airport. And I would note that it was signed by the applicant on May 7th, 2017. So this is their representation of where the plane was located in May 2017.
Any other questions, Mr. Crow? Mr. Curtis? Okay, I have a question for the applicant and then the assessor, just in the spirit of getting all the information that we need. Related to Mr. Crow's question just now, obviously there's a contradiction between the flight logs and the statement. So I assume that the flight logs are correct and that the statement is incorrect, but is there any, when I say the statement, I mean Exhibit C from the assessor is an aircraft property statement signed by the applicant saying that the aircraft was in Ventura County on the 1st of January.
Yes, I can respond to that. I was hired to file the Form 577 just a few days before I actually filed it. I didn't have any of the flight logs, didn't have the hangar agreement in Oregon, or any documentation that showed that it was permanently based in Oregon. So I filed it just for administrative purposes. And then when I finally got the documents and I reviewed it and performed my due diligence, then I realized, oh, this is permanently based in Oregon prior to the lien date. And so I filed a property tax appeal stating as such.
Okay, thanks. And then my question to the assessor, I'm pretty sure I heard a contradiction, and I don't know if it was, unintentional or maybe I didn't understand. But Ms. Smith, you pretty clearly have testified that the applicable period of time is 12 months prior to the lien date.
Correct. The year preceding the lien date.
Correct. And then, Mr. Horn, you answered a question from the applicant who asked the taxes that they did pay for it was the 2016 lien date. You said that applied to July of 16 through June of 17.
Correct.
But isn't that a contradiction of the statement that the lien date of January 1 of 17 applies to calendar year 2016?
The
I guess
lien-
my question's for Ms. Smith.
I can answer that. So just as the January 1st, 2017 lien date applies to fiscal year June 1st, 2017 through, I'm sorry, July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018, the 2016 tax bill would then apply to fiscal year.
Okay, so that's when it's due versus when it was accrued?
Well, I think it has more to do with, there's three dates in question. One is the lien date. One is what is the fiscal year to which those taxes apply, which is then the following fiscal year. And then the third question, which is the question at issue in this case, is on the lien date, what's the relevant period of time that you look to determine situs? And that is the year preceding the lien date.
And it's Rule 205 that's the basis for that? Is that?
No, I think that's where we were getting off on the wrong foot. So the case of Siegmiller versus County of Nevada establishes that the lien date is a practical method for determining that the taxpayer enjoyed the benefit of governmental services during the year preceding the assessment.
And is that in one of the exhibits?
It's cited in the in Exhibit A of the assessor's presentation.
Okay.
Ms. Smith, it's also our Exhibit 27, so you do have a copy
Okay,
of it.
so it's
And we obviously disagree with the.
on the interpretation.
Yeah.
And applicant is number 27? Okay. Okay. I don't have any other questions. Mr. Crow? Okay. Ms. Porsche, do you have the information you need for where we are right now?
I'll need some time to digest it, but yes.
Okay. So then we'll go next to closing summaries. We'll start with the assessor and conclude with the applicant.
All right.
And based on just timing, depending on how long this takes, we'll see in terms of a break for lunch, but if they are summaries and everything's been presented, my assumption is it won't take that long. So we'll just see where we get.
All right. Thank you, members of the board. As discussed, the facts in this case are relatively not in dispute. What we know is where this plane was located in 2016, which was primarily at the Camarillo Airport. We know that on December 28th, 2016, the plane was moved to Oregon, and that on January 1st, 2017, the plane was located in Oregon, where it stayed for a matter of weeks and was then moved again on January 25th to Nevada, where it remained for another several months and then was sold at the end of April 2017. Under the Siegmiller case, the lien date is a practical way of determining taxes and to establish situs as of a particular lien date, the board looks to the year preceding that date, which in this case is 2016. And under Property Tax Rule 205, which sets forth the rule for the assessment of airplanes, I'm sorry, I'm going to find the rule. Situs is where the plane is habitually situated. There is no other airport or jurisdiction in 2016 where that plane was habitually situated other than Ventura County. It is the applicant's position that situs transferred from Ventura County to Oregon because that plane was moved there on December 28th, 2016, and wasn't in Ventura County on the lien date. There is no evidence to support this. No other jurisdiction taxed this plane for lien date January 1st, 2017. No other taxes were paid for that lien date. No other taxes were paid for the subsequent fiscal year either. The plane wasn't registered in Oregon. It didn't pay property tax there or anywhere else. The applicant would like to ignore the fact that this plane was located in Ventura County for the majority of 2016 and escape taxation by virtue of the fact that the plane was moved at the last minute. That's not how the property tax rules work. The applicant in cross cited to the tax bill that was paid for 2016 and asked, well, didn't the owner pay for the benefits that it received in 2016? No. What the owner paid for on the 2016 tax bill was the benefits that it received in 2015 when this plane was located in Ventura County as well. Moreover, the fiscal year ends July 1st, 2016. So from July 1st, 2016 through the end of the year 2016, while this plane was here, where does it pay taxes? And so the argument that the applicant is making just does not match up. Oregon requires property tax on planes. California requires property tax on planes. We know that the plane was in Ventura County for the majority of 2016. We know that the owner owes property tax on its plane. And that under the property tax rules in the state of California, we had jurisdiction to tax. And that is because the plane received the benefits and protections of this state and this county in 2016. The applicant has represented, well, the applicant paid taxes here in 2016, and it is the applicant's burden to demonstrate that it does not owe taxes in 2017 because situs of its plane transferred somewhere else. And it is the applicant's position, it's the assessor's position that the applicant did not meet its burden to show that situs transferred from Ventura County, where it paid taxes in 2016 and where its plane was located throughout 2016, to some other jurisdiction. And so absent any such evidence, it's insufficient to say, well, it just wasn't here and it never came back, because it received those benefits throughout 2016, and because of that owes taxes on the lien date January 1st, 2017. Finally, if the board determines that somehow situs, that the move of the plane up to Oregon was relevant and changed the situs of this plane, then we would ask that at most the board apportion taxes between California and Oregon for the very limited time that the plane was in Oregon in 2016 and where it was located on 2017. But we don't think that's the case. We don't think that the way the applicant is interpreting the law is how this works, and there have been no cases or property tax rules cited to endorse their interpretation of the law. And if you stop and think about it, it doesn't make sense that you can move your plane out of the jurisdiction at the 11th hour and simply escape taxation for that year, which is what would happen if this board was to determine that it was improper to tax the plane. Because if not here, then the plane isn't taxed anywhere. And that's not how the property tax rules of Oregon or California work. And we would submit on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll go now to the applicant's closing summary.
Ms. Beladian's just going to do a little rebuttal on 1 or 2 points, and then I'll give the closing statement.
Right.
Okay, and if there are questions related to the rebuttal because there's any new information, we'll allow for questions from them.
With respect to the Oregon property tax, I want to clarify that there is no personal property tax on general aircraft in Oregon. The only thing they tax is commercial aircraft. And the information that I'm telling you is provided in the Exhibit 35 that I sent out, page 4 of 13, where it says personal property tax, no. However, air transportation and air express companies are assessed by the department pursuant to ORS 308.515. And that's like air carriers, like, you know,
Okay.
and air taxis. Oh, and also, I want to point out that there are many states throughout the U.S. and a great number of states in the East Coast that do not assess property tax on aircraft. So just because an aircraft owner moves their aircraft and bases it to another state is not necessarily a scheme to evade property taxes. Just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions related to that information?
I do. Exhibit 35 is not a statement of the law. It's a presentation by Conklin and DeDecker. Who is that, or what is that?
Conklin and DeDecker is a company that's well known and very respected in the aviation world, and they have summaries of every single state throughout the United States and the different taxations. Like, for instance, what I do for my clients who purchase aircraft, I give them multi-state sales and use tax and property tax guidance. And I'm actually on the National Business Aviation Association Tax Committee, and I actually prepare reports similar to Conklin Decker, but I didn't bring the ones that I prepare, obviously.
All right, thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So the question before this board is whether or not the aircraft in question is subject to tax in Ventura County for the 2017 tax year. That determination is made as of January 1, 2017. As shown throughout Ms. Beladian's presentation, every single statute, 2192, 405, 404, they all say you can only assess to the person who owns, controls, possesses the property on the lien date. And the case law, as I'll mention in a little bit, is very clear. It's where the property is situated on the lien date. That's the question. The undisputed evidence before the board is that the aircraft left California prior to that lien date, January 1, 2017, and never returned to California. The flight logs confirm this. The hangar agreement, showing that it now is going to be based out of Oregon indefinitely until they sold it, shows this. The testimony of Mr. Corral shows that. The point of moving the aircraft to Oregon was to get it closer to Air 7's salesperson so they can sell it. They couldn't sell it while it was located here. They moved it to Oregon, and guess what? They actually did sell it. The Assessor's Handbook 577, which are always given great weight by the courts, according to the Supreme Court of California, instructs us again. You have 2 questions with aircraft. The first question, is it taxable? And that question is taxability as of the lien date. Now, there's 2 cases that really shed a lot of light on this question. The first is Brock v. Board of Supervisors, which is California Supreme Court, and the other is Siegmiller, which was mentioned by both parties. Now, in Brock, you had a jeweler who owned jewelry all throughout the year leading up to the lien date in Los Angeles County. He then temporarily moved it to Honolulu as of the lien date, and then brought it back in to California, into Los Angeles County. The Supreme Court there said, you don't get to avoid Los Angeles County property tax. You are only temporarily out of the state. But what they did say is there is no duty to maintain property permanently in a jurisdiction where it will be subject to the taxing power, but it may be removed to a non-taxing jurisdiction and escape imposition of taxes if such removal is permanent. So the analysis in Brock was, where was its permanent location as of the lien date? If the assessor's argument is accepted, they wouldn't even look at the lien date. They just would have said, well, it was in the county all leading up to the lien date, and so that's the period we look at. That's not what Brock looked at. Brock looked at where the property was permanently located at the lien date, and they specifically said, had the jeweler permanently moved the jewelry to Honolulu right before the lien date, there would have been no tax. So all the assessor says, we're trying to create this new rule where if you move it out at the 11th hour, you're not subject to tax. This is not a new rule. This is not something we're trying to create. This is something the California Supreme Court specifically stated in a published decision, that if you move it out right before the lien date, as long as that move is permanent, you are not taxable. Now, Sieg Miller is another case. Sieg Miller kind of highlights how the lien date can really act as very harsh or not harsh. And what I was trying to get at through the hypotheticals is if you own a property, personal property, and you sell it right before the lien date, December 30th, you don't get taxed for the next lien year, tax year. Whereas if you buy property January 2nd, you also don't get taxed for the next lien day. So if you buy property January 2nd, 2017, you don't get taxed in 2017. If you sell it December 31st, 2016, you don't get taxed in 2017. Vice versa, it can work pretty harshly. If you sell a property January 2nd, 2017, you get taxed the entire 2017 tax year. If you buy a property December 31st, 2016, you get taxed the entire 2017 tax year. It's as Ms. Baladian referred to it as, it's a very bright line rule, and it kind of has harsh consequences on either side depending on where you fall. The assessor stated that Sieg Miller sets forth this test where you look back for the prior year to see if it has situs on the lien date, even if it's no longer in the state on the lien date. That couldn't be farther from the truth. I'm gonna read some quotes from Sieg Miller. So as far as due process is concerned, the only question is whether the tax in practical operation has related to the opportunities, benefits, or protections conferred or afforded by the taxing state. The nexus is satisfied when the property taxed by the domicile state is permanently located within it as of the tax lien date. As of the tax lien date. Again, Sieg Miller cannot escape the fact that it is taxed because the property was permanently situated in California as of the tax lien date. Since the tax levy corresponded to the benefits of governmental services enjoyed as of the tax lien date. This is Sieg Miller through and through. And Sieg Miller, what happened is someone owned an aircraft. They owned it as of the lien date. They then sold it in August, right in the beginning of the fiscal year. And they said, well, we want apportionment because we only owned it from July to this portion of August. And so we only want to pay on a portion tax basis. And Sieg Miller said, no, 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 you have to pay the entire year because you owned it as of the lien date. Again, Sieg Miller didn't do what the assessor said. Their analysis wasn't, well, you owned it the year all entire prior to the lien date, so that's why you owned it. Their analysis was, did you own it as of the lien date? And actually, footnote 3 of Sieg Miller is quite interesting. There, the county, one of the parties in there, says the presence of property on a fixed lien date as a measurement of turning its taxability works both in favor of and against the taxpayer. For example, if he had moved his inventory into Nevada County, this is Sieg Miller, if Sieg Miller had moved his inventory into Nevada County on the day after the lien date, Sieg Miller would have been able to operate for almost a full year before incurring any tax liability. Again, it's all as of the lien date. There is nowhere in the law that says a test for taxability as a lien date looks back for the prior 6 months and that's it. Now, a second question, which we don't have here, is if you have multiple cituses, you would look back for an ease of reference. But we have to get to the first question that the assessor's handbook says. Are we taxable as of the lien date? Here, we weren't taxable as of the lien date. Prior to the lien date, in accordance with Brock, the owner of the aircraft moved the aircraft to Oregon with the intention that it would stay in Oregon and not be moved back to California at any time. You have the testimony of Mr. Corral. You have the declaration from Flo stating that she was under knowledge that it was moved to Oregon until it could be sold. We seem to be punishing the taxpayer here because they sold it quicker than they expected. If the taxpayer didn't sell it for 18 months, would the property not be taxable? The fact of the matter is, intention of the owner is really, really important when it comes to taxability as of the lien date. The owner did everything in their power to move it and sever all ties with California. They moved the property to Oregon. They entered into a hangar agreement with Oregon. They have an office there. They have a person who's working on the aircraft in Oregon. They moved it out of California, and in fact, it never came back to California. Now, the assessor didn't mention it, but they seem to be almost arguing a home port doctrine. There's this old thing in the law where back in the day, movable property was always taxed at the home location of the business, no matter where the property was. So if you were based in Ventura County, but your property was in New Jersey, everything was taxed 100% to Ventura County. That doctrine has been eradicated from the law. There's a case, Geometrics versus County of Santa Barbara, has a great quote. It says, if the home port doctrine's not dead, it's functionally comatose. And there is no home port doctrine here. You can't just tax this plane that never was in California in 2017 because they happen to have an office in California. Movable property is taxed where it is permanently located, and this property was permanently located in Oregon prior to the lien date. Now, I know we don't want to hear a lot more about Rule 205, but Rule 205 is very clear. It says if it was in the county for more than 6 months preceding, you also have to look at whether it will remain in the county and or return to the county. That's Brock. That's basically the regulation in that enacting Brock. And here, it didn't remain in the county. It wasn't here. And there was no intention for it to ever return. And it never did return. So there was no permanent location of this property in California as of the lien date. I do also want to reference the annotation, which was Exhibit 20, no, not 24. Exhibit 23. Now, granted, this is plastic coverings for strawberry fields, but it's the same analysis. The due process analysis of taxability applies to all movable property. That's in a Supreme Court case. I believe it's Braniff v. U.S. Airways, is that it? Yeah. The due process is a constitutional argument. It stays the same for any type of property. And in this sheet case, you had these plastic sheets that were in a county for 9 months for the calendar year, but they were always destroyed, gotten rid of before the lien date. And here you have the State Board of Equalization, who's tasked with giving guidance to the assessors and assessment appeals boards and taxpayers, saying, you know what, those sheets, even though they were in the county 9 months prior to that lien date, are not taxable in this county because they were not located in the county as of the lien date. Very exactly analogous to our case. We were in California for 2016. We left prior to the lien date. We were no longer there on the lien date, permanently left as a lien date. We were the exact same analysis as these strawberry sheets. And just because properties are different, you can take the same legal analysis and apply them to them. I do want to raise one point that was raised on closing. It's not true that the 2017 taxes are based upon the benefits you get as of 16. The 2017 taxes are based upon the status of your aircraft as of January 1, 2017. The 2016 taxes are based on the status of the aircraft as of 2016. To say that we're escaping taxes and not paying for the benefits, opportunities, and protections is just not accurate. We paid our 2016 taxes. We did receive benefits and protections for the 2016 calendar year, and we paid taxes for 2016. We also paid taxes in 2015. What we didn't get is we didn't get any benefits and protections or opportunities from California as of January 1, 2017, or as of any other date in 2017, because the property wasn't here. It had permanently been moved. Therefore, there's no reason to pay property taxes for benefits and protections and opportunities that you didn't actually receive. Under the assessor's reasoning, they make it almost impossible to ever move a property out of the state. Brock says as long as you move it out of the state prior to the lien date, you're not taxable. But the assessor's reasoning and analysis, even if you do move it out permanently, since it was here the prior calendar year, you're still taxable. That goes 100% contrary to California Supreme Court case law. Now, to the one final point, as Ms. Bellotti had mentioned, she did file a 577 statement under penalty of perjury, but at the time she did not have all the relevant facts. So she filed it as a precautionary measure just to make sure if we did have situs here, we filed and told the assessor. But that's the point of this appeal, is once she got all the relevant facts, she realized that the property had permanently been moved to Oregon prior to the lien date. And that's the point of this appeal. And then one final thing on procedure. We do have the burden of proof. That's why we went first. We don't disagree. However, the burden of proof, once both sides, and this is in, I believe, Rule 324, once both sides present evidence, the burden of proof disappears, and the board just needs to weigh the evidence based upon the preponderance of the evidence. You need to determine who you think is more correct. And the presumption that the assessor properly performed his duties or her duties is not evidence before the board, also in the rules. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the hearing to public testimony. The board will be deliberating in closed session today. My guess is that, well, I'm not sure if we will or will not make a decision today because we may need our counsel to research things. However, the applicant can check in with the clerk's office in terms of status, and there will be a minute order sent out right after we make a decision. And then findings of fact will be prepared, was it 45 days, within 45 days after the decision? And so that's where we are. But we will be in deliberations today. So you don't need to stay, either party, you can.
You don't want us to just hover over you?
You could. But we'll be in closed session, and so that's where we are. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The assessors, representatives, and applicants for your time and all of your work.
Chairman Stern, one last issue on this. The valuation hearing is hanging out there. Ms. Bolidian has signed a waiver to the 2-year period, so otherwise we'd be required to resolve this by the September 14th. So she's waived the period, but we still need to do something about the valuation hearing. So the recommended action I recommend you take right now is to make the motion. If the board determines the aircraft shall have taxable status in Ventura County, continue the hearing on valuation and schedule the hearing on valuation to a date to be determined by the clerk of the board in consultation with the applicant and the assessor. That'll give us the ability to schedule the hearing after you make the decision and not schedule a hearing if you rule in favor of the taxpayer.
Is that something you're looking for in
motion
the form
to
of a
that
motion? Okay. Any questions, comments, or a motion?
So moved with the clerk's comments.
I will second that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Curtis and seconded by Mr. Crowe. Motion carries.
Thank you. That wraps up all the loose ends with this item.
Okay, and I believe we've taken care of everything else, so we'll be adjourned for deliberations in closed session at 12:45.
Thank you.
One little, Mr.
Almost.
Not involved in that case, the one with the, one where you had to reschedule this one, is this been, we're going to hear that eventually, or do you have to?
Yes, we separately, as to not penalize the applicant for the clerk of the board's mailing error, we've scheduled their valuation hearing for October in anticipation of you granting our request today. So that's all been taken care of. Okay.
Okay, thanks. We're adjourned.